I got into a fight with my friend, and I did my best to do it biblically, but he didn't end up owning up to his end. He just kept making excuses, and now we're not even really close. This hurts a lot, and I don't know how to move on. Have you ever been in a situation like that, where you've done everything right biblically as best as you can, and you still end up hurt? You still end up frustrated and upset and just wondering, like, if I did all these right things, why am I still in pain? Today, we are going to be talking about a warning that I have for you of what happens when you go through conflict. You do everything right, and it still ends up messy and wrong. Before we begin, though, my name is Mariah. I'm a certified Christian mental health coach, and I'm here to help you grow in emotional and spiritual maturity through biblically based holistic practices. I have a free guide for you if you're wanting to grow in your emotional health journey. It's a 3-day prayer to help you navigate really what the Bible says about our faith and our feelings and all of those things together. So be sure to grab that by clicking the link in description. And also follow me over on my Instagram page where we have conversations like this and more. When we get into fights and conflicts and they're unresolved, it is difficult because there's a temptation for us to cover that pain with coldness. You know, the Bible tells us that where there's people, there's poop, and that's in Proverbs 14:4. And people are going to people are going to be messy. How do we deal with the messiness of people when it feels like we have put our heart out onto the table and it's still just like stomped over, it's bleeding out, and we are just struggling trying to figure out what does that look like to honor God and to love people when conflicts sometimes bring out the worst in us. The thing about relationships is relationships require us to evaluate our heart. And when people pull punches, it hurts. We are tempted to give an eye for an eye because we just want to punch right back to them. And when you're wrestling with another person, whether metaphorically or physically, there's a high probability that someone is going to get hurt. We've just finished our series on conflict for now, and I want to leave you with this warning. Don't let your heart grow hard. You know the saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me? It's lies. It's all lies. The Bible actually tells us that there is power in the words that we use. It has the power to kill, and it has the power to create life. And conflict in a relationship has the power to create life because remember, if you are not experiencing conflict, then you're not being honest, and so there's not that opportunity to really grow in connection with the other person, or you have the power to destroy depending on how that conflict is handled. Words are powerful. How we get into a conflict with another person matters. And when the dust settles, there might be bruises on both sides. You and I, we are tempted to go and lick our wounds. We want to hiss at the other person. It's like we got into a cat fight and we're like, okay, I'm done with you now. And if we don't allow God to properly heal our wounds, we're going to have thin skin and hard hearts. We're going to have calluses in the wrong places. Just like when you're learning how to string a guitar or play a musical instrument like a guitar, you need to have calluses on your fingertips because that is where you're able to hold the melody, you can hold the strings, and you can very skillfully master that. But if you have calluses where it's not helpful, or if your hand can't properly grip the neck of the guitar, you can't even play the music because you're too busy being ow, 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 ow when you're pressing on the strings instead of building those calluses correctly and being able to play the melody. So when we get into conflict, if we're not careful, we're going to build the wrong calluses. What I mean, thin skin, hard hearts, what I mean is conflict's going to roll around again because there's always a next time. And the next time, you're going to attack them instead of building that relationship. You're going to go on the defense instead of the offense. You're going to be someone who doesn't care about peace at all. And we've already done a series about peacemakers, so if you're not sure what that looks like, go back. It's hard work being a peacemaker. People who don't have healed wounds will always go on the defense. They are waiting for someone to say something. They might roll their eyes, might throw a snarky word. They are just someone who is willing to hurt so that they may not be hurt. They think that that's a form of protection, but really it's destroying everything around them. And if we are not careful, our hearts will become like that person, and we will miss out on the blessings that God has for us because we are unwilling to face it. When you and I, we have the temptation to have an eye for an eye, and we don't handle it the way that the Bible calls us to, we're actually going to leave behind a lot more of a mess than we should. And we're going to be tempted to do an eye for an eye because there is a place for justice. There is a place for us to get recompense. I think that's the word. Correct me if I'm wrong. But we want to know that what we went through was real and valid, and there is a desire for us to experience that. But if our heart is off, then what we call justice is actually going to be retaliation. It's going to be revenge. And revenge leaves you feeling cold and distant. It hardens your heart. Lack of emotional awareness is going to keep you trapped in that cycle. Because if we don't identify the emotional need that we have, we will be operating from scarcity. And I know from personal experience, getting into an unresolved conflict sucks, especially if you were the person that did everything right. You went to them biblically, you presented your situation, you tried your best to not be just overtly like personal in the way that you are sharing the information. You're wanting to build that bridge, and it still sucks. I wrote a whole guide about it. You can check it out. But if we want to live the victorious life that Jesus died for us to have, then we have to be willing to do soul searching. Anytime a relationship leaves unresolved, there is a grief that we have to navigate. And that relationship has changed. Whether or not you like it, there is no going back to the way things used to be. And to be quite honest, the way things used to be wasn't okay, anyways. You're just familiar with it, you're comfortable with it. But God calls us to do the deep soul searching, to remember that there is a better way. Just because you're used to it being a certain way and now it's no longer doesn't mean that's a bad thing. If we allow God to search our hearts, He will bring out of us the things that need to come to light so that we might be able to experience a fuller relationship than the one that we're experiencing now. Even if the other person lit the match and burned down the bridge, doesn't mean you have to hand them the lighter. Doesn't mean you have to do the same exact thing. You can allow them to be who they are without having access to you if they're being hostile and they're being unreasonable, but you don't have to hand them the lighter. And the type of emotional security that you need to be able to give them the distance and space that they need if they want to stay unhealed has to be brought before God. And He has to fill that emotional need that you have. But if you can't even identify what that need is, how can God fill it? It is easier to respond with coldness and hardness because it means you don't have to feel. But if you are unfeeling, you are not going to allow the light and love that God has for us to come in and interact with the people around you. You're going to have a cold, small, sad world if you refuse to get healing and you refuse to feel. Grief is vulnerable because it means we have to admit that we actually cared. Pride, it tells us that we're going to protect ourselves. We're looking out for numero uno. But it makes us harmful instead. We're calloused and we're cold. And in our attempt to protect ourselves, we hurt other people. We will go on the defensive. We will attack. We'll look for people to hurt us, and we'll find it every time because people will people. This is why we have to acknowledge the emotions that we feel. If we choose to ignore them or deny them or dismiss them, we're choosing to self-destruct. Thing is, conflict can be a really good thing, even unresolved conflict, because it will bring out of us the things that God wants to heal. And if we allow it, He will show us where we have been acting out of woundedness instead of wholeness. This is part of the process of sanctification if you have the courage to make that choice. God is our defender. I know that it sucks getting into a relationship with someone and letting it all just burn down. And you tried your best, but you have to let God be the one to defend because there is a time and place for justice. But remember, we have to fight the right battles as Paul tells us in Ephesians 6. When people are deceived and willfully harmful, That doesn't mean we stay connected in that relationship, but we need to be on guard. If we release them, we must bless them. And the Bible tells us to do that because I think God knows just how tempted we are to get angry and hard towards that other person and minimize the relationship we have with other people because we're so focused on that one relationship that burned us. We can't see the five that we have with us connected, trying to help encourage us and heal us and grow us. We have to remember that we have to keep our hearts soft. And we do that by remembering how much grace we needed. When you remember how much you have been forgiven, it doesn't justify what that other person does, but it reminds you, okay, God's got to take care of them too. Because if he took care of me, he's going to have to take care of them. Doesn't mean I have to be with them, doesn't mean I have to stay connected to them, but it does mean that I release and I bless. I block and I bless. You let God deal with them. But we do that by letting God examine our hearts. We have humility. We say, God, like David said in Psalm 139:24, see if there's any wicked way in me. And if you have the humility to see that, then God will reveal those things and help you work through it. You will not have to go through it alone. And he will give you a freedom and a peace and a security that you didn't know you even needed by allowing him to be God over your life. You and I all know someone who chose to stay wounded. Look at where they are in life. Is that who you want to be? Is that the life that you want to live? Or are you willing to do the hard parts now and let God clean out the infected parts of your life? Are you willing to soften your heart? I love this Russian proverb that says, the same boiling water that softens a potato hardens the egg. It is about what you are made of, not the circumstances. You and I get the choice to decide how we will respond when conflict strikes. And even if conflict goes unresolved, especially if conflict goes unresolved, we have to make a decision every single time we remember that situation to bring it before God, ask God to soften our hearts, and ask God to keep our skin thick so that way we are able to love the next person that comes and we don't miss out on the blessing of that relationship because we're so focused on that past relationship. But at the end of the day, the choice is yours. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this video was a blessing to you. I want to let you know that I am going to be taking a break from now until the end of the new year, or beginning of the new year, that is. And I have other videos. If you're brand new, I'd love to catch up, see how I can bless you. But if you like this video, be sure to like it. Press the thumbs up button. Subscribe to this channel so that way you don't miss out on conversations like this, and ring the notification bell so when I do come back in the new year, you're ready for me. Leave a comment below, tell me what you thought, and I will catch you in the new year.